Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host for today's presentation. Thank you for joining us for another Flycast Partners webinar. Today's webinar is Best Practices for Evaluating Service Management Software in 2017, presented by none other than Flycast Partners' own Greg Gilda. Greg has been with Flycast Partners almost since its inception and has been responsible for hundreds of new tool implementations. He has been in the IT industry for almost 20 years and has proven ITIL consultative skills to numerous clients regarding ITIL best practices and the critical success factors required for smooth implementation and operation. Before we get started, Greg, let me introduce our organization. Flycast Partners is here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience. Founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space, we took the best ideas from these collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become a leading value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation services in training in ITSM, ITAM, workload automation, capacity optimization, Microsoft, and enterprise service management, all using ITIL best practices. Our professional services can easily scale up or down in order to meet the IT needs of any customer, regardless of size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your company's long-term IT success. Our ongoing remote administration and support service offerings will enable your organization to focus on those normal day-to-day operations, saving you both precious time and money. Our website is always monitored by our team of well-trained ITSM professionals. Please visit us online at www.flycastpartners.com or feel free to reach out to us via the telephone at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. As most of you know, this is just one of many weekly webinar topics that we address here at Flycast Partners. I encourage you to go to our webinars page and sign up for our future presentation. Next week, we start our series of ITIL service design, ITIL service transitions, and ITIL service operations. If this interests you, please take a couple moments today after today's webinar to sign up and invite one of your coworkers as well. We encourage you to look around our website, utilize our website for researching those industry white papers and training that is available from ITIL to ITSM to ITAM. Take a look at some of the upcoming events that we have around the corner. We have our Speakeasy Tour coming up for our Footprints and BCM customers. We have an Avante Happy Hour in Houston on October 24th. We've got an offshore fishing trip and leaving out of Galveston, also an Avante trip. We have our BMC Footprints V12 administering training happening in Miami right around the corner for those of you interested, as well as many other events on our calendar. I encourage you to take a look at our events page and sign up for anything that may interest you or refer them to your coworkers and friends. With that being said, and without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn this presentation over to none other than Mr. Greg Gilda, the man of the hour here. And Greg, I am sliding my screen over to you right now, so you should be able to share this momentarily. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. It looks like you're still on mute there. Oh, perfect. Looks like you got it. And I'll let you hear you loud and clear.
Outstanding, sir. Thanks for the sharing request. I'm about to share my screen. Thanks for the introduction as well, Rich. Really appreciate that. And thanks for everybody out there who has joined us on this happy Thursday. Today, our discussion is going to be about selecting an ITSM software solution in 2017. Now, when you think about buying new software, right, most of the time when we talk about our processes in-house, it always boils down to, it's the software. It's the software. Sometimes it's the process, too. So there are pieces of the puzzle that go into what we're about to discuss, right, the software itself, and how the processes that you have dovetail into them. But of course, making sure that the software is able to be configured and usable by you and that you can continue to grow with it is going to be key in making those kinds of decisions. So we're here to talk about no specific software, just software in general that can help manage your ITSM processes. So we'll talk a little bit about signs that you might need a new ITSM service management solution, right? These solutions and their needs sometimes rear their heads in many ways, and I've listed a few of them in our discussion. We'll talk about some of the features and capabilities that they have, where to start. So if you're thinking about making these choices, some things to consider, how to get your ducks in a row, etc., and anything else that you want to think about when you're making these kinds of choices. So as Rich alluded to, I'm Greg Gilda. I've been working in the ITSM space for many, many years, which makes me old, if nothing else. But today, we're not talking, as I said, about specific tools. We're just talking about you might need a new ITSM solution if you seem to have a little too much spare time. Because, yeah, there's nothing like launching into a big ITSM tool project to eat up that spare time that you might have. Or maybe you just have an abundance of cash laying around, burning a hole in your pocket. You're not really sure what to do with it. Hey, why not go buy an ITSM solution? That's what everybody thinks of. Why take a vacation or something? You're curious about discovering new things because there's nothing like launching into a project, launching a new tool where your processes are now getting kind of documented and properly scoped to discover exactly how you're doing things. Sometimes that's not a good thing, right? Sometimes you don't want to discover this stuff, but you're going to discover brand new, never before seen features of the organization as you try to implement these kinds of solutions, because they start drawing everybody's day-to-day jobs into the fore. Of course, the correct answer really should be none of the above, because these aren't necessarily indicators that you do need a new software solution. Clearly, just having fun with this. But you might if timing is important. Right? If the timing of the work that you're doing. Sometimes support reps simply take too long. Right? They're resolving issues, just means we have unhappy customers. And you can usually tell they're unhappy because they've called you 5 times today already just to see if you fix that particular thing. So if it seems like we're dragging our feet, it might be that we just don't have a way to prove whether we're dragging our feet or not. So a solution that lets us do that would be helpful. Time can be wasted because our agents, our technicians, the folks assigned to do the work, might all be working on the same thing. And smart customers know this. They know how to fire the shotgun so that it hits the widest array of targets. Getting everyone to work on it at once means that the likelihood of one of those people getting picked off and doing something else, okay, they got called into some other thing, but I still got 5 other people working on it. So their issue is going to get fixed. Pulling the entire team together to fix a particular single issue is usually a sign that the tool isn't telling anyone that, hey, we're working on this already. We've already got this assigned to someone, several someones, in fact. So let's help mitigate our resource utilization. Requests for service can fall through the cracks. We know that never happens, right? We're always completely on top of these things. Not a single one ever misses. But if we don't log them, right, we know, especially in IT, if it isn't documented, it isn't real. It didn't even really happen. Right? And if somebody's documenting this on their palm because they got caught as they're walking down the hallway, hey, can you help me with something? Sort of as if they were the ice cream man and you're catching them. Well, the odds of those things getting logged into a tool are slim. They might get stuck on a sticky note on the side of someone's monitor or something. So we need to have this information logged and tracked so we can understand what we're working on, what everyone's working on, is to make sure that the ones that need to be followed up on are. And of course, clients might leave. Now, if they're trapped, meaning the only place to get their services are from you, then, hey, they're probably not going anywhere. They're just unhappy. But if you service customers who are outside the organization, right, folks who come in from the outer world, then they might have a choice in where they go to get their services. And if things aren't working quite correctly for you and you cannot get any joy out of contacting their service desk to get it fixed, then they might say, hey, we just go to someplace who does. We rely on WebEx for these webcasts. If they were unable to provide us consistent service and every time we called, they didn't know that we'd called last time, well, we might pick a different vendor for this purpose, right? We might choose someone else. So these things, timing, how quickly can we get this stuff turned, is important, obviously, because the more time we spend, the more money we spend. Somebody put that equation together many years back, and it's true, 100%. We might need a new tool if these timing considerations are important to us. Knowledge, that can't possibly be important. Who needs knowledge? But we might need a new solution if our knowledge is scattered instead of being centralized. And this happens all the time. Organizations develop pockets of knowledge, usually individual elders, who will show up at meetings or be invited to projects, etc., because they have the secret knowledge. They know the information. Well, if they leave, then there goes the information they know. Right? We refer to that as the brain drain. When folks leave, they take the stuff they knew with them. If we don't document it in a centralized knowledge repository, then we don't have a place to go back and get this stuff fixed. Now, thinking that we're going to solve all of our customers' problems with a knowledge base doesn't look at the statistics, right? 10% or less of the actual issues get resolved because customers have access to a knowledge base. It's less about that and more about making sure that our IT knowledge, the folks who we have in our organization, don't take the really critical information with them out the door when they go. And since turnover happens in IT, right? The restaurant business has more, but we have a lot of it. That turnover means that those folks are taking their knowledge with them, and you need a place to document it. Knowledge transfer usually doesn't exist between agents. Technicians oftentimes want to keep that knowledge for themselves because now I'm really needed. I'm the one who knows how to do this, nobody else. Stand aside. I'm going to step in and make this work. So, and that's great. I think every organization needs to have the folks who step in and say, nah, I can make this work. I'm the magician who can do it. The downside of that clearly is that single points of contact for those things result in single points of failure if that person isn't around. So since the tendency is to not share that knowledge, it'd be nice to have a place where you could do that. Known errors. Known errors are the things we're documenting as part of our problem process, right? Problem management, removing the underlying root causes of one or more incidents. And those known errors can be treated as if they're brand new and never before seen. And if you think about this in real life, let's just take a scenario with your cable company. Maybe you have a cable box, and your cable company's cable box is fraught with issues, and about every week you're calling the service desk over there at the cable company because it needs to be fixed, and they bump something on their end, and suddenly it works again. Well, that's clearly a known error, right? It's a documented issue. Now, they're taking credit for you calling them every day because first call resolution, yay. They're fixing this stuff without having to send it to anyone else. That only means that they're really, really, really good, though, at doing that same thing over and over again, which is not what you want. Right? So if you can document these errors and have a place to go back to, you can say, no, this is what we should do. We should replace the thing so that they stop calling or take some other action. No documented location means no good way of getting that information into other people's hands so that we can resolve it for our customers. You might need a new solution if happy customers are important. We can just skip right past this slide. Who needs that? Kidding. Tracking customer satisfaction and agent performance is usually difficult. We can say that we did good stuff for our customers, but unless we have a way to tickle them and measure this, there's no effective way to have our customers say yay or nay to the services we provided. Did we do a good job? And more people, you can't order anything from Amazon. Certainly I can't, without getting an email in my inbox from the vendor of the product, right? Especially if they didn't use Amazon directly. It didn't come from their warehouse, but it came from some third party. I always get notifications in my inbox of, are you happy? Let us know. If you're not, give us a smiley face or something. So you need a way inside of your ITSM solution to know whether or not the customers you're reaching out to are actually getting the services that they want to have. Any customer sat scores measured might be poor or declining. So if you are able to get customer sat info, you might find that they're not happy with something. Right? Then the something, for those of you who are setting up surveys and trying to do this kind of work, the something is usually measured in the PPT triangle, right? Process, people, and technology. It doesn't matter which order you list the P's in. But those people, process, technology concerns mean, hey, are my people skills good? We're asking our customers, did the person who helped you respond in a friendly, courteous manner? Excellent, check. Did the people who helped you from a process standpoint respond in a timely fashion? So did we give you friendly answers that were resolved quickly? And finally, technology-wise, hey, did we give you friendly answers resolved quickly and correctly? Did we actually get it right? Is the tech working the way it's supposed to be after we've intervened. So asking those simple questions gets you answers about if we're doing people process technology work with our customers. One more question maybe you want to ask them, overall, how would you rate your experience? But if those things are going downhill, then customers are finding something amiss, and they may be sitting on that information and not telling you or not have a mechanism to do so. A new tool can help. Customers might increasingly be expressing frustration when they request support. There are many customers, certainly, when I used to work directly for organizations, that would refer to the help desk as the helpless desk. Because they didn't feel like they could really get any resolve out of that. That's not the kind of organization, obviously, that anyone wants to spin up. You want to be as helpful as possible. But if they feel that they're frustrated when they're requesting support, they can't get answers that they want to, they can't get them in a timely fashion, they just don't have access to the correct information, right? And we don't have a good way of putting our finger on that because we're not sampling our customers, then a tool to help us get those customer sat scores would be better. Customers are probably contacting you multiple times. Like I mentioned earlier, if they're following up with you every hour to see where you're at, then you're probably not doing good two-way communication, not getting a good feel for the pulse of where the customer's at in terms of their expectations on responses. And or we're not setting those expectations through our tools, communication back to the customer to let them know what to expect so that they're not calling saying, okay, are we there yet? How about now? Are we there now? So these are all elements that you need to think about when you're considering a tool and managing customer satisfaction. Obviously one of those. You might need another one if data is important. This is just another element of, who thinks data is necessary? Seems so quaint. But we tend to make decisions about things, oftentimes based on who can spin the best yarn, instead of looking at our actual data that says, no, this is what's really happening. This is what's really going on. I'd worked for an organization directly in which they were having bad customer satisfaction scores, so at least their tool told them this. Whenever a customer had to interact with a technician or an agent directly, they had bad scores. And the director, the VP actually of that area, went to the board and said, we know why customers are having bad experiences and why they're rating us so badly. It's because our monitors are too small. And she went on to make the case that, look, we have like 6 systems that we have to go into in order to check statuses of this and that. We can't have all those screens up at once. Customers are waiting for us to switch screens and switch functions. So if we had a nice big, 30-inch monitor on our desktops, then we could have all those screens up side by side and we could switch to them easily and our customer sat scores would go up. Awesome. She painted the picture to the board. The board said yes, and they promptly ordered a bunch of monitors. The downside is it didn't change their customer sat score one bit. Not one bit, because it was based on a story, not on the actual data. When they dug into the data, they found out that the customer sat scores were down for people who had been there somewhere between 2 and 5 years. They were up for the people who had been there longer than that. They were up for the people who had been there less than that. And the 2 and 5 year folks were, probably a chunk of folks who were going, I thought I'd be done with this job by now. I thought I'd be moved on to something else and I'm still working here. Oh, well. Whereas the folks who had been there for a long time, 5+ years, were like, yeah, this is what I do. I love it. And the new folks were out to make an impression. So, of course, they were doing a good job. It was the middling folks. But without data, you couldn't make that decision. So requests for service can oftentimes go undocumented because we don't have a good place to actually document them. And as we talked about, if it's not documented, it isn't real. Think about this in the real world. Where can you go in the real world where you don't get some kind of ticket that represents what you ordered or what you're about to order? I mean, even at McDonald's, you get a receipt that shows you, here's your order. Here's the stuff that we processed for you. You can't drop off laundry without getting a ticket. You can't drop off your car without getting a record of the work that you've requested. So everywhere there's a documented paper trail that says this is what they asked for and we're going to do work against it. Except for whatever reason, oftentimes in IT, we just don't capture that detail. Don't know why. Sometimes the understanding of the sources of those most common requests are hard to quantify. Remember, they're going to ask you for a service you provide, right? Whether it's a break-fix service or a fulfillment service. It's still a service request. Sometimes we do break-fix stuff. Sometimes we order new things for you. in the end, it's still a service request of some type. And if we can't track what services we're actually delivering most frequently, then how do I know where I need staff? It's hard to make that case because my people are busy. I can't tell you doing what because I don't have any documentation, but they're really busy. Tickets can get bounced between service providers before getting fixed. This probably never happens. Kidding. This is one of the issues that plagues most organizations, right? The tickets, because of the way they're categorized or not categorized, go to the wrong people, and then they say, oh, that's not us. It's these other guys. And then they send it to somewhere who's the wrong person too. And so the ticket gets kicked like a can down the road until somebody finally says, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to work on this. And the customer is not getting happy. And we don't have any good data about where we're supposed to send it in the first place because we just didn't have a tool to capture that info. Decisive data regarding service volumes, time to resolve, backlog, carryover. All of the things that help us know if our business is really on track or not when it comes to running IT stuff. That stuff is recorded in emails, sticky notes, maybe not at all. If it's in an email, it's really hard to find because they said, what are you doing for lunch? And then they also said, oh, by the way, can you tell me what's going on with this request while you're at it? So why would we think to look there for that info, right? So having a place to store this information and having data that we can use to make good decisions means that we're not just flying by the seat of our pants or sticking a finger in the air. We're actually measuring with real data to know whether or not it's safe to proceed this direction or whether or not the things we suspect are what's really happening. And as we talked about before, it's hard to justify headcount if I don't know who's working on what, right? If I don't really know what's being done. So obviously you don't want this to be something that is, a block to people's work. The documentation process should be as easy as possible. And some people love email for that because look how easy, I just created an email, right, or a sticky note. But as long as we can keep it unobtrusive, we can get folks to play along, and that means the more they play along, the more info we have to understand exactly where we're headed. Finally, I'm sure many of you were thinking, okay, when does finally come? Finally, and I think it's obvious, right? There isn't any single rule that can tell you this. There's no single one of these considerations. There may be others that fall underneath those headings, right? From a timing standpoint or a knowledge standpoint or a satisfaction standpoint, things that you're experiencing yourself, use cases that you've gotten a hold of that are like, man, we have got to stop this stuff from happening. They might not have appeared in my list, but they're fresh in yours. And there are signs. Right? There are signs that you need to switch tools. You want to do it when the desire to provide timely information, friendly, frequent information, anytime service requests arise. Right? We need a way to track what's going on with them. And if we want to start making good decisions based on data, not just based on a story someone wove that said they needed bigger monitors, but actual data that tells the real story about what's happening, then we can understand how to best align resources with the service offerings that are the most common, and we can get customers satisfied in a more rapid and happy fashion. And we get the ability to measure how well they've done it, right? Or how well we've done. So let's talk a little bit about the way the solutions come to you, right, or get delivered. They're usually web-based or client-server-based, right? Broadly speaking, they're either a web server and a database server somewhere, and these can be, either SaaS or PaaS, right? Platform as a service or software as a service. Client-server-based can also be set up the same way, software or platform as a service, depending on the nature of the platform or the software. But the delivery method of web and client are kind of the two big differentiators there. And then, of course, we have on-site stuff versus not. And SaaS offerings and platform as a service offerings represent the stuff that is not necessarily locally hosted. In this way, there's kind of a broad spectrum of mechanisms by which you can get your service delivery ability delivered into your organization. Now, if you do studies on an ROI, you'll see that PaaS and SaaS solutions tend to cost you more if you keep them for 3 to 5 years or longer. That's where the point of diminishing return starts to come in, and it's actually more expensive to have it remotely hosted and serviced than it would have been by that point to have it serviced in your own house. Plus, you have a little less direct control over what the outcomes are. But for some organizations, many organizations are gearing themselves up to be purchased or to look good on paper because they're going to make an offering, a stock offering, or what have you. And in those cases, they may want that short-term fix, the PaaS or SaaS offering, or in cases where it's like, look, we're never going to have a data center. We're just never going to have one. So we're going to do everything through a PaaS or SaaS offering. It at least allows those types of services to be delivered, whether they're web-based solutions or client-based solutions. When you actually get the tool itself, they're also divided into a couple broad camps, code or codeless, which usually represents customization or configuration. If it's a code-required tool, then almost always it's customization. The tool becomes yours the minute you get it, because you've had to go in and code everything in order to make it work. And now that solution is yours to back up, yours to try to upgrade. Some of the code-based solutions can be very tricky to upgrade. You have many pages of documentation to go through. And there isn't a guarantee in those cases that the stuff they just introduced code-wise isn't going to break the stuff that you were doing in your system, because it's a code-based solution. So they're not really trying to maintain sort of that integration layer inside the organization or inside the tool that says, we'll configure stuff through the configuration layer and we will upgrade the code on the actual code or transaction layer. That's what you get when you have a codeless solution. Codeless stuff is usually done with a form of a point-and-click interface. It may support limited scripting, but is utterly not required to make the tool work. Most of them that are in this bracket don't do scripting at all. And that means that when you do installations of the tool or upgrades of the tools that are codeless, you typically can do those as a wizard. They upgrade right over the top of themselves. All of your settings remain as they were. So you're not spending weeks and months trying to get an upgrade in place only to have certain critical business processes break. So codeless tools not only have that as a benefit, but they allow you to configure them without being a programmer. And that means from a maintenance perspective, you don't have to pull somebody off the shelf, or worse yet, hire somebody directly just to maintain your ITSM tool. Their day job can continue as normal because we can let folks who don't have to be coders, but who can't understand the business requirements or the needs of our process, interact with the solution and do it all with their mouse. And that's where you get customization, like I said, which is code-based, or configuration, which is usually the codeless stuff. We are configuring the tool to behave in this way. We're using our mouse and keyboard. We're pointing and clicking. Of course, from a feature standpoint, how does it talk to other stuff? Most of the solutions out there have the ability to be managed through an API, which means they can accept calls from other tools. And if other tools have APIs, then virtually all of these tool selections have the ability to talk outward to those other products too, right? Tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, other tool, I'm going to call your API and make you do something. So that integration with the other solution is based on the other solution's abilities, and the integration with your ITSM solution that you choose is based on its abilities. If I'm going to wake it up and do things remotely, for example, I need to have an API that I can talk to with it. Now, when we talk about integration stuff, there's some pieces of it, like single sign-on. Is that supported or not? And for some organizations, that's not even valid because they may service external customers, which means they're not ever authenticated on their network or any other system within their architecture. So those external folks are probably not single sign-on people, and it may not be a valid choice for them. But can you then at least integrate with AD or LDAP so you can pull data out of Active Directory, use group memberships, etc., to determine roles? These things will help you when it comes to setting up the folks inside the tool and giving them permissions based on what they can do. How does it work with your monitoring solutions? Most tools have monitoring, most monitoring solutions, that do event management can trigger, through their API calls, make an external call to a solution, an ITSM solution, and say, hey, I've detected an event. I'm going to record a ticket for it. Just be careful what you wish for with that integration, because if it currently is filling up someone's inbox overnight because of a drive space issue, right, those 800 tickets that it filed or emails that it created will be tickets tomorrow for you to close. So you want to make sure the thresholds are set appropriately if you're integrating it with monitoring tools and they're measuring events for you. The things that become tickets should be true manageable events rather than things that are just going to go away or that we can ignore. Integration with other data sources. Lots of times tools need to get data from other places. Can they do that? Can they pull data? Can they read somebody else's database? Right? And for the most part, solutions can do this on the market unless that external data source is proprietary somehow. For the most part, they have the ability to go in and read data from that external data source. Integrating with their email system so that we can communicate outward from the tool. Can we tell folks what we've done, where our status is? Give them updates so they don't have to call us. Because if we keep them in the loop and set expectations and use a common communication solution like email, for example, or even social media, right? Lots of tools are doing that now. That capability means you can keep them informed and keep our information in front of the customer so that they don't have to feel like they have to call us for it. Customer input, if they need to tell us additional stuff, where do they do that? Maybe they need the ability to simply say, we want our own portal to log our ticket to begin with. Most solutions allow you to do email or give customers their own portal, their own front end. Remember, if you build it, it doesn't mean they're going to come. They're not going to just naturally show up because you put a portal out there. There's going to have to be some incentive. There's going to have to be some training. It can't just be 20 minutes worth of training. It's got to be, here's some hands-on time with this portal, and we're going to keep training you over the course of this whole week until you get it. And mobile integration. Can I access the tool and do stuff with it from a mobile device, whether I need an app for that or not? Many solutions simply run on a web browser, so every device has one, handheld or not. So I can do everything on the tool that way. And since most modern tools, ITSM tools, now output their data as HTML5, it's pretty easy for you to make that work because it'll work on any handheld device and it'll scale properly for the screen. From a configuration standpoint, do the tools give you a what you see is what you get editor? In other words, can I kind of drag and drop the field data onto a form that I can see so that I can get a feel for what it's going to look like before it ever shows up in front of somebody? That way, the tickets, the fields, the interactions can look the way I want because I'm getting a chance to see it sort of as I build it. Oftentimes when we do things with code, we don't get to see anything. It's just lines of code, and then the tool compiles the code and makes the code work, and then we see it. But in tools that allow me to configure that are codeless, it's especially important to have that capability. Can they manage workflow? Workflow is a swear word because it means something different to everybody who really talks about it. And sometimes people think workflow is rules. Sometimes people think workflow is actual workflow, like a Visio diagram. There are tools that support that capability, that actually use a workflow that looks a little like a Visio diagram to decide what the ticket's going to do in its life cycle. And each box in that diagram represents a station that the ticket stops at in its life cycle. And just like a train stopping at stations, when they stop at the next station, they're going to get instructions. They're going to unload and offload passengers. The ticket itself may get updates from people, may get approved by folks and sent on to the next station. So workflow allows us to manage what happens to that ticket in its life cycle. And tools that allow us to do visual versions of this means that we can have a picture of kind of what that flow is going to look like and where the ticket will stop. Does the solution allow you to process business rules? Is it an important factor? Business rules allow me to automate things to be sure they happen when they're supposed to. Hey, the ticket has been untouched for 3 days, and it's complete, and we've contacted the customer already to ask them how we did. And the customer didn't say anything, not even thank you. So maybe the rule should just close that ticket and notify the customer to say, yeah, we're done. Or maybe we have another rule that says, hey, supervisor, yeah, your team has not looked at this ticket for 4 hours. It was critical, should have been closed 2 hours ago. You might want to step in and do something about that fact, right? Business rules combined with codeless solutions means that I can quickly stand up and automate functionality inside of the product without having to go back to a vendor or a VAR, such as even ourselves, right? But that way you can steer your ship. You can pilot the direction that your business needs to go. And oftentimes those direction changes can happen like wind shifts overnight, right? Suddenly tomorrow we're going in a whole different direction, and we need the tool to be flexible enough to follow us when we go. Being able to code those business rules with your mouse without scripting anything, but pointing and clicking your way through goes a long way. And of course, the ability to manage knowledge, because we don't want to keep repeating the work we've done. We'd rather just reference the old stuff and say, yeah, this is how I fixed it 10 minutes ago. I'll probably use the same solution now. Talking about the data features, Does the tool support the ability to attach documents? That's important. Lots of times we need supporting documentation, even if it's just a screenshot that tells us what's going on, right? Does it track time? Do I understand who has spent how many hours working on it? And even better than that, lots of solutions will allow you to not just track time, but tell you bill rates and costs. Hey, this person worked for 4.5 hours on this ticket, and this is what we pay them per hour. So this is what it cost us for those 4 hours to get that work done. There's no better way to put your finger right on the money than to say, hey, we've spent this much time resolving things this year. Next year, we're going to spend a little less time because we're going to get more efficient. But if you don't have the ability to track that in the tool, and you certainly don't have the ability to do that in email or a sticky note or a Word doc, then that information gets lost. Searching. Can I find the details that matter to me? Can I look up the old information? Can I reference it? Can I say, yeah, I see you called about this on Monday? If I can't pull that data back, like it's hard to do on an email or some kind of paper thread if it's a Word document or something, I need to be able to reference the records that I used to have to find out the history of this customer or the history of this issue, or to simply look up how many issues I had last week. Which brings us to reporting, because finding stuff is the first step to reporting stuff. Reports are always based on a search of some kind. Usually we call that a query. So does the tool support the ability to query for the data that I've captured? Does it let me capture any data I want so that I can always query for the stuff that matters? And then can that search, that query, be turned into a report so that I can say, show me last month's tickets that were critical. Here they all are. Great, let's put it in a report now so that I can see it as a chart or a graph. Can I analyze the data? Can I use pivot tables, for example, right inside the tool so that I can move the data around and relate it in different ways, slice and dice through it as I'd like to? And if I can't do it in the tool directly, can I export the data to something else, a CSV file or maybe even Excel file directly, for example, so that I can import it into Excel or as a CSV flat file into another analytics tool so that I could look at the data from there. And of course, that consideration extends into the database. Does the solution have a database that's open or closed architecturally? If it's an open database like SQL, then you can go after it with whatever you want, SQL Reporting Studio if you'd like. Get after that data any way you want to. If it's a proprietary tool with a proprietary data source, you'll know it right away because the company is going to try to sell you a reporting module to get your data back out. And you don't really want to go there. From a support standpoint, how easy is it to administer the tool? Right? Can I do it through the web, codelessly? Do I need professional services to come in and make it work? And I'll give you a clue. In most tools, yes, there's going to be professional services work because you won't know the tools ins and outs out of the box. And even if you're very smart, which most folks we encounter are, we are all IT geeks after all, so we're all pretty smart people, but we don't always see everything we need to see, or we may make assumptions about things because that's how the tool presented the data without getting the full power of the solution under our belt. So professional service is absolutely key for getting tools of codeless or code-based at least understood and set up, right, initially. Do we have support staff or need support staff to make the tool work? So internally, do I have an admin? Do I have people who call if there's issues with the tool? Do I take that to the vendor, right? Offering L1 support. And it's something that Flycast Partners does, for example. For some of the tools that we sell, we offer L1 support because folks need places to go to get vendor support for the products. And lots of times they prefer to use us versus a vendor. And are there forums? Can we go out and see other people's commentaries? Is there a community that's behind the solution that's participated in by the vendor? That would be key, because that way they're reading the stuff, right? And they're taking the commentary and the considerations to heart and then incorporating that information into the tool as future feature adds, right? Those are all critical. These are all other considerations, like does the tools provide social media access, right? Lots of folks still scoff at that idea, but for some organizations, it's particularly useful, depending on how you're communicating data. If your email tool is what you rely on, and that's down, then it's tough to communicate. So in some cases, this is really important to have social media. That multi-channel request support simply implies, can I use social media plus other solutions like email, etc., or a web page to get information into the system so that I can track those tickets no matter where they came from. Does the tool support merging or grouping those tickets together? I had 15 people call me today about the same issue. Can I list them all as one big major incident and then close a single ticket and have it close all other 14? Or do I have to go into each one individually and close them? Right? Does it support more than one process? Sometimes some tools look like bargains when you go to buy them, right? Bargains like maybe even free. But they can be free like a puppy, because afterwards, when you find out you can only support one process, oh, if you wanted to support those other processes, you're going to need this other stuff. So when you look at solutions, you want to consider, and I'm just going to pick on ITSM stuff here, does my change process and my incident process and my problem process and my config process and my other blank management stuff all have a home here? Can everybody work on their stuff independently, or are they all trying to look at the same ticket? The incident record is the change record, is the problem record, because that's the only thing the tool lets you do, for example. You want it to be able to support multiple processes and to sequester those processes if you need to, because sometimes we just don't want anybody involved in HR except HR. Data segregation is really what this is boiling down to. Does the tool allow me to separate that data into different schemas or different structures in the database so that I can make sure that, even folks who have access to the data aren't necessarily seeing everything that might be out there? So as you're doing this looks like a kind of a big circle. As you're doing this, you want to start getting some ducks in a row first. And honestly, in the big debate of what comes first, the policy or the process, it's always the policy. Policies are sort of laws. Processes are means by which we can achieve obeying the laws. Laws are written so that we can achieve our corporate missions. Our mission statement, right, should reflect what we as an organization believe we are about. This is who we are. Now we have policies that help us support that and processes that help us support those policies. So policies must be bought into and created that are supported by the executives. We must agree that everyone will file a change request, no exceptions. We can't have somebody saying, except for me, who will say, you don't need a change request for anything because I'm going to skirt you, or, give you all a backstage pass. If that's going to happen, then you don't have executive support for your policy of thou shalt always file a change request. So you need to have those policies in place. Then you can consider what processes will I create, in order to be able to support that policy that says we're delivering to our mission. We're doing the right thing, right? Because that's where this all boils down to. We need a mission statement that is inevitably supporting this stuff. And then setting a budget. So, okay, I have all this stuff in place. I understand the policies and we have support. We have processes in place and a mission statement that we are supporting. What's the budget that we can spend? And now let's look at tools that can help us support those policies and processes that we've designed inside of it. So things to think about, right? How is security accessed in the tool? So how do we set users up? Can we get them out of Active Directory, etc.? If they're disabled in Active Directory, are they by default no longer able to access the tool? Where can they access it from? We talked about that, mobile access, etc. But we need sometimes for folks to be able to access the tool from any platform. Number one laptop in the world is a Chromebook. It doesn't run any typical OS that you're used to, right? It's not Mac, it's not Linux, it's not Windows. Chrome OS. It's not like there are specific ITSM apps built for Chrome OS. However, you don't need them if the app allows you to access it from a web browser, for example. So that accessibility should be as widespread as possible so that folks who are using the world's most popular laptop can access the tool as well as folks on their handheld devices. How do you get it deployed, or do you even need to? If it's client server, then yeah, you got to get the clients on people's desktops and keep them up to date. So you need to consider that. But deployment also means, what about the back end? Some tools, and we've certainly worked with customers in this way, assume that you're going to take, sometimes days to get the tool configured. 17 servers later, it's going to take forever to get all these little things set up. Other tools, especially the codeless variety, usually set up with the wizard and can be done in like a half an hour. So getting the tool set up and in people's hands should be as quick as possible. Does it allow me to brand organizationally? Can I use my colors, my logos? Can I have different sections of the tool reflect different parts of my organization so that if somebody logs into my facilities section, they see the facilities logo, for example, and only facilities tickets. And in the end, we talked about process quite a bit, but in the end, I need to make sure that the tool is going to support best practices, because unless I have a good reason not to, I should probably not want to reinvent the wheel over and over again, unless there's some reason that says, nah, reinventing the wheel is what we're all about. Most of these processes, especially the ITSM stuff, have been vetted across the planet. There are good practices for doing this stuff, hence the ITIL standards were born, right? These documented good practices and best mechanisms are something that literally all ITSM tools now support, hence the concept of IT service management. So that means some of those differentiators might be a little different, right? It isn't intended to tell you what your process is. When you go buy one of these tools, lots of folks are like, hey, what does it come with out of the box? With the assumption that out of the box is somehow your process, even though it's been built by a software vendor who has no idea what your process really is, right, how you're going to use it. They simply try to build the tool to cover as many bases as they can, as many bases as possible. But it's not necessarily going to look exactly like the way you do business. And part of the ITIL standard is that it's a framework. It's not a rigid, you have to say these exact terms. It's your terminologies, right, flowing through that general framework. So this is why the tools themselves may be sketched in, just a rough sketch that you can come in and modify. But no out-of-box solution is going to be, wow, that's my business right there. Software vendor knew exactly what we did, because they're just building it somewhat generically. Remember that if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. That might not be good. So it's time to shake off all of the old stuff, right, and say, wait a minute. If we continue doing it this way, then won't we get the same results we had yesterday? And isn't that why we're changing all this stuff? So I know it seems, almost trite, but it's true. You have to look at it and say, tomorrow I'm going to come in and do something different. Meaningful reporting is based on your mission, your goals, and your KPIs, not just the data you happen to have gathered in the tool. And this is where a lot of folks, when they're designing this stuff, fall down, right? This is certainly when we work with customers, one of the things we're trying to find out is, what do you want to get back out? Because if you don't put that data in, then it's very difficult to pull the data back out on the backside. So you got to understand, what are you going to use to steer your ship? And we provide examples of that type of stuff as we work with you, because it's vital, right? Looking at your organization's mission. Every process you set up in your organization should be pulling towards the mission statement, the things we stand for. Why did I build a service desk? It's got to be delivering something for my mission, because why the heck did I do it? And then we need to understand, great, what are the goals of the service desk as they relate to the mission of the organization? And what things should I measure, the KPIs, that tell me that I'm achieving those goals? If I'm doing those things, then I'm going to achieve the mission of the process. And if the process is built to support my mission as a company, then we're all rowing in the same direction, right? Because we're all working on the same stuff and for the same purpose. But you need a clear mission to rally around if you're going to get that stuff right. And of course, finally on this list, ease of use and setup are going to go a long way. If I'm trying to react and respond to business changes, and they happen all the time, then I need a tool that I don't have to get in line and say, yeah, 6 months from now, the vendor will come out. Well, by then, you're already missed the bus. You need to be able to make the tool do what you want it to do, in a matter of hours, days at the most. The codeless solutions are definitely a way to go there, because you have the ability to use your mouse and design the functions that you'd like to, without having to bring in somebody from the outside or take somebody away who's on a project just to write some special code for you. Ladies and gentlemen who have joined me from across the country in North America, thank you. I greatly appreciate you taking time out of your Thursday to listen to me yak at you for 45 minutes or so. I want to turn this back over to Mr. Longo. You guys have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. And we hope to see you on another Flycast webcast soon.
I would like to thank all of you that joined us today for taking time out of your busy schedule and remind you about our ITIL series that starts next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You might want to sign up for service design, transitions, and operations. Over the next 3 weeks, we're going to be hosting those webinars. So please take a look at our website and go sign up for those presentations. And once again, Greg will be presenting all 3 of those. So it'll be more of the same from Mr. Gilda, and a lot of wonderful points will be made, I guarantee. Please invite your coworkers or anyone else that you can think of that may be interested. And for those of you that are looking for an ITIL class, Flycast Partners has its initial, very first ITIL class starting on August 14th through the 18th, where we have that for $1,200 right now, which is our introductory offer. So anyone that's looking to get ITIL Foundation certified, please reach out to us at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. That's 844-359-2278. Or email me, rich.longo@flycastpartners.com or info@flycastpartners.com, and we'll get you signed up and into our initial ITIL class. Those of you attending our virtual ITIL class, and I want to remind you that it is virtual. You will be actually attending that class with Flycast Partners personnel here at Flycast. We like to have all of our team members at least foundation certified, no matter what the position. So this class will have some of the Flycast personnel in it as well, alongside with you. So please reach out to us, and we'll get you in that class on August 14th. With that, I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend.